final project?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and start recording it just so you know. But yeah, please.
Okay. Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
So basically, the email that you sent this morning just said that we needed like the framework of a poem, the citations for the annotated bibliography, and then a topic proposal. So are we just going to be setting up the framework of a research paper and not actually writing a research paper?
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. You're going to end up probably turning in as many pages as a research paper would be, but like an 8 to 10, which is what I would typically do for a 102. But instead of completing the assignment and really having like time to develop a research agenda, a research paper as a class, which I think in a normal semester, we would go to the library with the librarian. We'd have a whole lesson on research and working together. So instead of making you responsible for a research paper, we're responsible for all of the parts that would create a research paper, including, right? So you'll have a close reading of a poem, which was what we did with our first essay, except this is going to be a poem from the book you pick. You're going to have an annotated bibliography. That's all of the research that you could feasibly use for a research paper. And then a topic proposal, which would tell me, generally how all this would look inside of a longer essay. And then I think I'm debating on whether or not I'm going to ask you to write like one really good body paragraph. I think I may just have you do that just to see if you can. But in terms of like an actual final research paper, we're not writing that. But you could, if in theory, you could write one pretty easily when all of this stuff is done.
Yeah, so what is the close reading exactly in comparison to the topic proposal? Because I kind of like bunch those two things together, but I don't know if there's like a big difference.
The main difference is like, it's a good question. The topic proposal is about your entire research paper, right? The entire research project. So it's introducing us not only to what poems or poem you may be using in a research paper, but all of the other kinds of information that would help us get a sense of your approach to this particular text. So let's say you're doing, let's say just for argument's sake, you're gonna say that you're gonna write about Bright Dead Things by Ada Limon. Your topic proposal is gonna talk about a couple of the poems, maybe sort of generally mention why these are the poems you wanna focus on given the whole book. But it's also gonna mention what kind of research that you've done to better understand the text. So both research about literary approaches like book reviews and interviews, but also idea stuff that isn't necessarily about her book, but that you have researched to create an argument for the book. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whereas a close reading is just literally looking at like the poem, what it looks like to us and the words we use, writing a close reading of just that poem as an example of how you would approach the overall text. So just like we had been,
just like one of the 500-word arguments we've been doing in our reading journals previously.
Okay. Exactly, except it'll be a little bit longer. It'll probably be closer to like 1,000 words, but that's exactly right. Just like looking at em dashes, commas, whatever the kind of comments I've been giving you in your reading journal, applying that to this text, and then, or to a single poem. And then in theory, when I get all of your stuff, and you can turn it all in together, or you can put it separately. My hope is that you've turned in reading journals, you've turned in your second essay, you have my comments to know how to strengthen your close readings, and then I'll be able to see how well you handle text, close reading, and research.
And with the close reading need to kind of align with the argument I would want to hypothetically put out there with my topic proposal?
Yeah, exactly. That's the exact hope, is that your bigger picture for the close reading, which that's going to be like that's a thesis driven essay really, for close reading. But your thesis would probably be very much like the thesis you'd be putting forth into a final research paper, trying to make those two in tandem with one another.
So if I'm talking about like in Cherie's poem, and I'm talking about like the disparity between politics and identity, can I just focus on one poem for the close reading instead of going off to every one of them?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
One of the things you can do in either the close reading or in the topic proposal, or both, depending on how you want to do your conclusion with the close reading, is to mention how similar other poems are to this idea. But it's a continual theme that you see in the topic proposal. You can follow up on that and say, we see a similar theme in this other poem, though it's slightly different, and then the later poems. And what you're just doing is showing authority of the text, that you paid attention to it. You see that there's a valid reason to focus on this because it's in multiple places, but you wouldn't be required to close read those poems.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it actually, because that was just what I was really confused about, because I didn't know if I should go off and do a whole research paper or just like the framework. So yeah.
No, and I'll make sure I'm going to post another syllabus today. It's basically going to say like just do some work, but I'll put on there very clearly like we're not actually writing the paper. We're just doing little component parts of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
Valerie. If you start working on this, if you run into some questions, shoot me an email. Otherwise, I'll be here, of course, Wednesday and Friday, and I'll be in touch. If you haven't heard back from me from all of your journals and paper, I'll be in touch soon with all of that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Of course, Valerie. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye now.